NFL coaches and executives have anonymously ranked Justin Herbert as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL, and we think that in 2023, he could actually vault himself into the top 3.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 7 seasons together, but this is our 5th season as a host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you guys, as always, for making us your first listen, and to make sure you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel, and also listen to the show wherever you get your podcasts. David, what do we got today?
Today, we are going to talk about Justin Herbert being a top 5 quarterback. Jeremy Fowler of ESPN came out with his rankings where he talks to all of the coaches and front office members anonymously, get their opinions. They rank all of the top players, and they rank Justin Herbert top 5. Also, we're going to get into, hey, would Patrick Mahomes have the same level of success if he was in the situation Justin Herbert was in? And is Keenan or Mike going to be with the Chargers after 2024? We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of, decisions to be made there for sure, but we do value these lists that come out. Not every list is equal, but it is interesting to see what, anonymous NFL scouts and NFL coaches and high-ranking NFL officials have to say about these players when they're not having to put their name next to it, right?
Yeah.
So when you see Justin Herbert ranked as a top 5 quarterback, that's saying a lot because that means that's basically what the consensus is in the NFL. And it said the highest that he was 9 in this, which seems insane to me. I don't know how anyone could ever think Justin Herbert at this point in his career is number 9 in the NFL. But some guys had him as high as number 2. But I do think, David, when we were looking at this, we were thinking, okay, well, it'd be hard for him to crack the top 2 this year, Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow. But 3 and 4, who are Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, it does seem like there's a possibility that Justin Herbert in 2023, with everything he has available to him, could leapfrog those guys.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I just feel like when you look at Justin Herbert and you see his situation, yes, he has a new offense coordinator, but he has a lot of continuity around him, Daniel. Yeah. I mean, he has his offensive line intact and fully healthy at this moment in time. He's getting Rashawn Slater back. He's got Corey Linsley back. He's going to have, his guards in place. He has Trey Pipkins back. So his starting offensive line's in place. His full complement of weapons is there. And you have to hope that this new marriage with Kellen Moore is going to be able to put Justin Herbert in those positions to really get the most out of him, because I still feel confident that we have not seen the best out of Justin Herbert yet.
I think if you're looking at the 2022 offense, it's hard to imagine where they got worse in 2023, right? Are they getting a worse play caller? It's hard to imagine that, right? They added Quentin Johnson. They didn't really lose any major offensive skill position players. The only major player they lost was Drew Tranquill, and that's on the other side. So, they're keeping everything. It's all continuity. But when you're looking at those two guys specifically, I think the reason where I kind of feel like, okay, yeah, I mean, I could see it happening with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he's 39, right? Going into a new situation, but he was a back-to-back MVP. So I don't have a huge gripe with him being above Justin Herbert right now based on respect. But this is supposed to be about 2023. Right. I thought Justin Herbert, you could probably make the argument was better than Aaron Rodgers in 2022. So, I mean, I think he definitely has a case for number 4 on this list. But I understand it. But, this is why Justin Herbert could be that guy, right? This is what these people are saying behind the scenes. Herbert is at the hump where they need him to win now. He's got everything you need, a fantastic player, but now it's time to make that jump. The offense puts so much on him that it's hard for him. And they also said he's deadly. He's a problem. He's done well with the tools that he has available to him, or that he has. They're telling you he is good enough to be that guy. I mean, they're telling you some guys already think he's the number 2 quarterback in the NFL, but it feels like with moderate playoff success and just him being better. I mean, this is where he's ranked after the year he had in 2022, right? His down season, his lowest passing touchdowns in a season, right? Hitting career lows in some marks, and he's still number 5. I think that with Josh Allen, who's a little bit volatile, right? Who seems like he could have a bad stretch potentially, and that's a little bit of an up and down situation. And Aaron Rodgers kind of aging himself out, right? And being the last of a dying breed of the last, golden era of quarterbacks. I just think it's very realistic that Justin Herbert, if he puts things together, if they can stay healthy with the new weapons he has available to him, the sky is the limit. I just don't know if he can catch the other guys that are in front of those guys, because both of those guys, Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, have playoff success, right? Have AFC Championship games both back-to-back years, both went to the Super Bowl in the last 2 years. Like, that would be hard to do unless Justin Herbert goes and wins the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it's going to have to take to be in that conversation, right? I mean, those guys have just, not only have they done it during the regular season, but they've done it when it counts. You know, in the dance, they've performed, they've gotten victories, and, you know, with Patrick Mahomes, he's gotten Super Bowl rings. Yeah. And so, I mean, it's going to be really, really hard to unseat that guy.
There's nothing Justin Herbert can do this year to catch Patrick Mahomes.
That's not going to happen. No. But, you know, if Justin Herbert wins like an MVP award, you know, this year, I definitely feel like, you know, him leapfrogging Aaron Rodgers and you know, Josh Allen, I definitely feel like that's a legitimate situation there. But I just feel like with Justin Herbert and his ability and his processing ability, and you match that with the aggressive play calling style of Kellen Moore, also with the ability to run the ball a lot more effectively and efficiently when you need to, is going to be all significant reasons why Justin Herbert goes off. And also, you have to remember the running element of his game is going to return as well. Justin Herbert is a very mobile quarterback. We didn't see it last year because of the injury. That's just another way he's going to be able to beat opposing defenses this year.
Yeah, and I think that's how he bridges the gap, right? Like, using his legs more should help him bridge the gap between him and, you know, Josh Allen, because he's a better decision maker than Josh Allen is, right? Like, Josh Allen has more outstanding wow plays for sure. Josh Allen is insanely good.
Yeah, the rushing plays for sure.
You know, like, I mean, even with, you know, he was much more deep passer than Justin Herbert was last year by a wide margin. Whether how much of that's Justin Herbert's part, right? That's what we've been trying to piece together, right? How much now with Kellen Moore we could see him push the ball down the field more. That's what we all want to see.
Yes,
we want to see his, you know, skill set fully utilized, and this feels like a way, you know, in 2023 where it could all come together and he could be pushing himself into that upper tier. But it feels like playoff success has to come along with it. But
it has to.
Another interesting thing that came out of this, right, when guys are talking about him anonymously, was this NFL official who said whatever the Chargers pay him, he'll be worth it. And that's what we've said all along. Blank check, get it done ASAP. But, David, the other thing about this, and the reason we're bringing this up, because it does feel like this week, these next couple weeks, we should be seeing pen put to paper.
Yeah, absolutely. You just look at the way the Chargers operate. They usually like to push things down to the wire. Like, they like to get these deals, these extensions done right before training camp, right before that clock strikes midnight. But that's the way that the Chargers operate. So I would expect that deal will get done very, very soon.
Yeah, if we're looking back, you know, Derwin James had a little bit of a hold in, but got signed pretty quickly once training camp started. If you're looking at Joey Bosa a couple years ago, and he was made the highest paid, you know, edge rusher ever, one of the highest paid defensive players ever. That happened like on the eve of training camp, like right before they were about to start. So this is kind of always what the timeline is. It would be pretty silly to not get him signed this offseason when you first have your opportunity to. And I mean, it shows you on this list, you know, like what other teams would be willing to pay someone like this, right? To have that answer on the roster. So Justin Herbert, I mean, no matter who you're asking, even when, you know, you don't have to put your name next to it and you could bash him if you truly have those feelings, doesn't seem like that's kind of where the league's out on him. He doesn't have the consistent, you know, top 2 votes that some of these other guys ahead of him has, but he absolutely could make that leap and have himself in the conversation as a top 3 quarterback going into 2024 if things go right this upcoming season. But it is Twitter Tuesday, and we have a bunch of questions that we want to get into from you guys, including a great question about what Patrick Mahomes' beginning would look like if he didn't get to sit behind Alex Smith for a year, if he didn't get to learn Andy Reid's offense for a full year before he actually had to take the team over and actually take those bull by the horns. And also, which of the 2 Chargers big receivers, we said it's unlikely that both of them will still be on the roster in 2024, which one's more likely to be on the roster in 2024? We're going to get into that coming up right after this. First, though, I do want to tell you guys about our friends over at FanDuel, the #1 sportsbook in America. And right now, it's time to take your swing at betting on some baseball, because if you guys do, you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200 right now with a special promotion that we have going on with FanDuel. That's right, just $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The win or lose ones are always the best one. And I'm no betting expert, right? But what I would say, though, is if you're going to win a lot of money, especially recently, the best thing that you can do is fade the San Diego Padres. If you've been betting against the Padres, you've been winning yourself a lot of money. So even though, and it's nice, too, because, you'll think you're going to lose because the Padres will inevitably get up just to inevitably blow it later on in the game. So that's my best bet recently, and you've made a lot of money if you did that. And you can do it on an app that's safe, secure, super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get that $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we wanted to get some Twitter questions in today, and of course, we always think we're not going to get enough, and then we get too many good questions, right, for these Twitter Tuesdays. That's always how it goes, and we wanted to talk about that list that the NFL executives and those coaches wanted to anonymously put out through Jeremy Fowler. But we had a great question from Colby Talbert, who is actually following right up on where we were just talking about, and he asked, do you think that Patrick Mahomes would have the same success if he was thrown into the situation Herbert's in? Is it talent that's so fast apart, or is it coaching and front office situation? So, it's a nurture versus nature kind of a situation, right? Because Justin Herbert got thrown into the fire right away, and Patrick Mahomes got to sit a year behind Alex Smith, got to learn Andy Reid's offense for a year. This is kind of where I land on this, David. Patrick Mahomes more than likely would have been great no matter what. He's so good that it's hard for me to imagine he would have just been toiling around, even Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson didn't go into a great situation when he got drafted in Houston, right? It would be hard to imagine what he would look like if he got drafted by the Jets, right? Let's just put it that way. And where the Jets were at in those days, especially, the Jets are a total mess. It's hard to imagine what Patrick Mahomes would have had to go through if he got thrown in a bad situation on a very, very bad team right away. But it's hard to imagine that he would have been anything other than great eventually. It seems like he's so good that the greatness kind of would have always came out.
I definitely understand that, and I agree that he's a super talented quarterback. But also, we cannot sit here and discount the greatness and the effect of Andy Reid, who is a first ballot Hall of Fame coach and offensive mind, one of the brightest and brilliant, most accomplished offensive minds in NFL history. And so I feel like Patrick Mahomes would have been great regular season-wise, stat-wise, even award-wise, but I don't know if that translates into into Super Bowl success if it wasn't for Andy Reid. And I think that is the big difference there. Andy Reid's a mastermind, an offensive guru who is a guy that you feel like no matter the circumstances, whatever offensive weapons he is presented with, he is going to find a way to make that work for him. That's what you've seen throughout his career as a coach. And yeah, he's had some great teams and he's had some great players, but I think that's the difference between, the success on the field versus the championship hardware is what the coaching does with the talent.
Sure, and going back to Colby's question, right, if he's in Herbert's situation, so imagining Mahomes coming in, right, in 2020 with Shane Steichen and Anthony Lynn, it's hard to imagine that specific situation. I think it's hard to imagine that it was just, Alex Smith and sitting behind him, that really led to him just, emerging. It feels like if he would have started as a rookie, they would have been a really, really good team. And if you're going to the question he asked, which is it the talent that's so far apart, or is it the coaching and front office situation? I don't think that Patrick Mahomes is that much more talented than Justin Herbert. I just don't.
No, I don't.
I think Justin Herbert's one of the most talented quarterbacks who ever played the game ever.
I agree.
Just hands down, right? Physically, mentally, he has all of those things.
Yeah, he's got everything.
Patrick Mahomes went into a great organization, right? A stable organization under a Hall of Fame coach with a Hall of Fame tight end and a speedster with Tyreek Hill to throw it deep to, right? But he showed you last year, obviously, as a much more mature player at this point, that he doesn't need all those weapons, that he can do it without it, right? And he is just that good. I don't think he would be as good as we all think he is right now if he had got put in the Chargers situation. Justin Herbert had good weapons and things like that, but a bad offensive line. Questionable play calling, all of those things kind of since he stepped onto the scene. And he had to play right away. But, if I could go back, I wouldn't change it. I think Justin Herbert got so much better by playing that first season that, it's hard for me to imagine that Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have had very similar success, right, and wouldn't have been similarly successful as Justin Herbert was putting together one of the most incredible rookie seasons we've ever seen. At the same time, yeah, if you sit behind, a quarterback for a year, it depends who you ask, right? But it does seem like, yeah, there's a lot of things that would be helpful in that situation. So let's get to Jose C. Silva, who also asked on Twitter Tuesday this question: considering the cap situation for next year, what do you think is the most likely scenario for the wide receiver room? 1, Mike Williams gets cut. 2, Keenan Allen gets cut. Or 3, both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen get cut. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I've already said, what I think is going to happen on multiple different occasions, but I will say it again here. I have been a guy, with my feeling, I feel like the Chargers are going to keep Keenan Allen. I feel like Keenan Allen is a Charger for life. I feel like he's just the type of guy that his game ages very, very gracefully because of his knowledge of the defenses, his ability to get open, the quickness in which he gets open, his reliability on first and third downs. I mean, those things are just so incredibly important and very rare to find. And that chemistry, too. I just feel like Keenan Allen is going to be a Charger for life. So I feel like it's going to be Keenan staying and Mike going.
Well, the funny thing about this list is it doesn't give an option for both of them being back, right?
Right.
It feels like it would be really tough to pull off.
Yes.
It's not impossible for them to pull off, but it also doesn't feel like they're going to cut Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack either, right? And just totally decimate themselves on the defensive side of the ball. So, it does feel like it's going to come down to one of these guys. Keenan is older, right? Keenan missed more games last year due to injury.
I know.
He's the one that you would save more money on. It's very interesting to see how they attack it because, Tom Telesco, when he's asked this year, said, hey, I'd rather have less cap space and more good players, right? So, but I think you're also seeing with the way that they've kind of had to put unknown players into key backup roles this season, that's kind of where it comes back to bite you a little bit. And things are only going to get tougher with Justin Herbert getting that contract. So I think it's not out of the question that both of them aren't back in 2024, but I think it's really highly unlikely. But the question is this, David, going off of your logic, though, does this season mean nothing? You know what I mean? How much of it is going to depend on what these guys look like this season? Because if Keenan Allen on a per-game basis when he was healthy last year, if he's that Keenan Allen, it would be insanely hard to cut him, right?
Yeah.
But if he gets banged up, misses 7 or 8 games again in 2023...
Well, definitely. It changes the narrative. It has to.
Sure.
It changes the conversation because it has to. I mean, because
but what if he loses a step and he puts up, 750 yards on 85 targets or something like that? You know what I mean? It does feel like what happens this year is going to have a direct, causation on what we're talking about right now.
I would agree. I definitely, it does matter for sure. I mean, you can't just throw it away. And again, hey, that might be my bias showing, right, of being a fan of.
Well, it's a hard question, man. I mean, it's really tough. Mike Williams is younger, but he also has
he plays a very volatile game, though, too. I mean, he's just a very, he's a very exciting player, but the way he plays, his brand of football taxing. Is very dangerous. Yeah,
very physically taxing.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I think that it makes it tough because you could, both guys could get injured this upcoming season, both guys got injured last year, and it's not going to make things any easier. If we're saying, hey, everyone plays 17 games in 2023, that's a tough question, man, and we have to kind of see, if both of them looked as good as they did last year, I think it would be Keenan Allen that would get to stay. But, he's already getting less separation than he did at one point, right? Even with the good route running, and it doesn't matter as much when you have Justin Herbert because he's a pinpoint passer. He doesn't need a lot of space. So, you could see him getting away with someone like Keenan Allen for a long time, even a couple more seasons. If it's going to be, who's a wide receiver for life, it feels like Keenan Allen's a guy. But, it's going to be really tough. Let's get to one more question here from Charles Motz, who asks, are you going to have a group meeting of sorts with the other Chargers podcasters? I think I remember you doing that last season. That would be fun. I agree, Charles, Chuck. I mean, this is something we've done the last couple of years. And the good news is, David, something is in the works being planned right now for another giant mega crossover event. Hopefully we're not spoiling anyone else's, announcement there.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully not. But, yeah, look out for it. There is going to be another big mega round table Chargers content creator crossover event here very, very soon. So watch out for it.
And we're excited about it. Always love it. You guys are spoiled, and I'll tell you what. I mean, there's a ton of great content getting put out around this team. Some would say the Chargers don't even deserve all the great content that's put out around them, without the success that we've all been hoping for and, dying for so long. But we love everyone. I mean, we have no beef with any other Chargers podcast. The director, guilty as charged. Chargers Unleashed. We love everyone, even all the other shows
Chargers
that
Chat,
are
all the great content.
Chargers Chat. Thunder Down Under. All those guys. We have no beef with anybody. We always get excited to talk with all those guys, and we have something in the works. There will definitely be a mega crossover coming soon. But I want to talk about Twitter Tuesday because we got some more great questions, including which late round pick could be an impact player for the Chargers in 2023, and also what if the Chargers go 4-0 to start this upcoming season? We're getting into that coming up right after this. Before we get into the question from David's rival, I guess, adversary on Twitter, Alvin.
No.
We have a lot of great questions to get into. And a tier, I want to use your question, but what I want you to do is send it back to us in a voicemail because it's just not quite the same when we don't get to hear your voice. But thank you for wishing me a great honeymoon. It was awesome. And thanks to all the everydayers who are always out here and contributing to shows like this in the dead of the off season. You guys helping us out with content and also just letting us know the things you want to hear about. And you guys came through for us today. We love the everydayers out there. And this is just this show. We have a couple of position groups and really important questions at position groups coming up later on in the week, including how much of a difference can Eric Kendricks make? Can he save this linebacking core? Can Deion Henley come up and get Kenneth Murray? All stuff we're going to be talking about tomorrow before getting to the cornerback position, another wildly volatile, position where it feels like it could be the biggest strength on this team, or it could be a couple of question marks away from looking totally different than the peak of what we saw in 2022. But I do want to get to George Watson's question here on Twitter Tuesday, who asks, what later round draft pick do you think could be a day one asset to the team? So I think the biggest question, David, is where are we kind of cutting off the later round draft pick, right? Because, I think you probably say day 3. Anyone picked on day 3. Hard to say any of the top 3 picks are going to be included in this conversation. Who did you end up going with when you were thinking about it?
Yeah, I went with Scott Matlock. I really, really like what Scott Matlock is going to be able to bring to the table. I like the attitude. I like the aggressiveness. I think that's a nastiness that's been missing from that group. I just love the I'm here to take your job. I'm here to take your soul. I just love that. I love that attitude, and I just feel like he's going to be a guy that's going to jump in on the rotation very quickly, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be able to provide a little bit of pass rush and be able to be competent against the run. I feel like this is a guy that's going to add something that was missing to that defensive line rotation.
Yeah, I love that pick. I thought you were going to go Derius Davis. That
would have been the easy one for me.
4th round is kind of pushing it as far as later round picks, right? Obviously, second half of the draft, but
right.
Derius Davis is obvious, right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's a guarantee.
He won a starting job basically when he got drafted.
Yeah, as soon as he got drafted.
Special teams. He's going to have an impact on the team. He's going to have a chance to make it, a big impact for the special teams unit right away, no matter what. But that's basically where it ends outside of Scott Matlock for the guys that were picked on day 3, right? Like, if Jordan McFadden, it's like something went wrong and somebody got hurt.
Seriously wrong, yeah.
Right? Max Duggan, oh my God. I'm not even going to go down that
Yeah, we're not
road
talking
now.
about that at all.
So, you really only have a couple of options as far as late guys that you could get impact plays from without injuries happening. But Scott Matlock is that guy because it's hard for me to imagine a scenario where he doesn't get on this offensive line rotation. And I would even go as far and go on this limb as well to say, there's a very non-zero chance that Scott Matlock is the second best interior pass rusher for the Chargers in 2023.
I think that's definitely valid.
I'm not saying for sure, but I was really, really enjoying watching him rush, specifically on the inside, which he did more as a junior at Boise State when he put up 7 sacks on the interior. He has a quickness that's hard to match inside. He has the pass rush arsenal that is really, I think, polished for a guy coming out, as a rookie. I really, really like his pass rushing skills, and I think behind Morgan Fox, he might be your next best option. And if you can get after the quarterback, especially on the inside, you're going to carve yourself out snaps. So you stole my pick there. I think Derius Davis, though, and Scott Matlock are both later round picks, though, day 3 picks that could have, definite impact early on for the Chargers this season. So let's get to David's rival here. Let's get to Alvin, his adversary, right, his mortal enemy, who asks, do you think we can go 4-0 before the bye week? I love Alvin. David and him have always had fun conversations and stuff on Twitter, but it's always been a back and forth. But hey, man, Alvin, you're an OG, bro. You've been around forever, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, man.
Always watching and always supporting us as long as you have. So he asked, do you think the Chargers can go 4-0 before the bye week? Did I already say this? Did I say the Chargers were going to start 4-0 at some point?
Pretty sure you did. Yeah.
Something along those lines. I was looking back on it. It's going to be tough, though. Like, it'll be really tough.
Yeah, I think that Dolphins game is probably, probably the toughest game out of those four.
So this is what the four are. I should have said.
Yeah,
right?
Dolphins, Titans, Vikings, and Raiders are going to be those four games. Yeah. I definitely feel like the Dolphins game is tough. I think that Vikings game is something that could be tough. I mean, they were a really good football team last year. I don't know how to really feel. Right, yeah, they're missing a lot of parts, but I don't really know how to feel exactly about the Vikings. But the other teams, the Titans and the Raiders, I feel very confidently that the Chargers are better football teams.
Even with DeAndre Hopkins, huh?
Yeah, I mean, come on now. Who's the quarterback? I mean,
Ryan Tannehill.
Who's throwing it? Yeah,
I mean,
next
you
question.
beat them 17-14 last year, though, and this year you're playing in Tennessee. So, like, I don't want to dismiss that team, especially because I have a lot of respect for their head coach, who I think is one of the better head coaches in the NFL, Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of things you can question about Tennessee.
Can they go 4-0? Yes, they can. That's the answer, yes.
Okay, sure. Sorry. I mean, I forgot we were getting away from a question. I mean, I was thinking DeAndre Hopkins, because the DeAndre Hopkins thing for me, just on a sidebar, it makes the Chargers game tougher against Tennessee, hands down. You know what I mean? And, like, the other thing that scares me most about that game is you're getting Derrick Henry fresh early in the season.
Yeah, that's
very,
true.
very scary for a run defense I don't think either one of us is ready to buy in on yet.
No, not until I see it.
Right, exactly. So, like, a lot of things should scare you, especially because it was probably a worse team last year and you beat them 17-14 in a game that you should have probably beat them by 20, right? Like, let's be honest about that game. I do think, though, that this could be the best chance they have of going 4-0. I think it's going to be incredibly tough. I think they could do it for sure. I don't know where I look on the schedule and I see an easier 4-game stretch, and that is with a loaded Miami Dolphins team, right? That is with a Minnesota team that was 13-4 last season, a Tennessee team that just got DeAndre Hopkins, and also, Vegas is, who is the easiest of this situation, obviously, right? They're the team that you feel most confident about.
Yeah, dumpster fire.
I'd say if you look at week 14 to 17, depending on how you feel about, Denver. You have Denver twice, Vegas once, and Buffalo once. Like, Buffalo is the hardest of all the guys. I mean, Buffalo is the hardest of all those games, but, like, I don't know. It seems like the first 4 weeks could be their best chance at 4-0. I still think it's unlikely, but, like, I mean, it definitely could happen. Let's get one more question in here from Twitter Tuesday. Shout out to everyone else who put their questions in. We'll use some of those questions on a future show because we just weren't able to get into all of them. But Michael asks, who has the edge in the kicker competition heading into camp, in your opinion? I want to say Dicker, but that missed kick in the wild card round looms large, I feel. David, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think if everything is equal here, it's definitely Dicker just because of the contract situation. I feel like that's a pretty easy decision to make, but this is going to be a battle that is going to be raging all training camp long.
I mean, I think the thing is like, it's not enough money to just automatically give Dicker the job.
Right, that's why I said if all things are equal, right?
Sure, I mean, if all things are equal, from what we've seen, the reports put out, like Daniel Popper and people like that have been putting out, I think Dicker has been better so far, but I think it's been pretty marginal.
One kick,
and I'd like to also say, though, that, like, Dustin Hopkins did miss a kick in that game against the Raiders in the final week of the season. So both of these guys were really good and missed one big kick in their time with the Chargers, right? So it's hard to hold that against Dicker, who was the most accurate kicker in the NFL last season, right? One of the most accurate rookie kickers we've ever seen in the NFL. But Dustin Hopkins lost his job due to injury, right? So I do feel like they're going to give him every chance to go win this job. He's a guy that's beloved in the locker room as well. Like, he's a good, clubhouse guy, whatever you want to call it. Not that, Cameron Dicker isn't, but Dustin Hopkins was a big part of that special teams unit, right? And was the guy that the Chargers finally found. They found their kicker finally. Dustin Hopkins was that guy.
That's true.
Before Dicker came in, right? So
right.
I'd like to lean Dicker. I think if you let that dude get away, who's much, much younger, and he goes on to be, Adam Vinatieri or Justin Tucker, you're going to kick yourself. But to me, I'm hoping it's Dicker, even though it's hard to say who would have a legitimate edge going into training camp. But the good news is I'll be out at training camp. Day 1 of training camp, I will be out there meeting up with all of you guys, hopefully looking forward to seeing you guys all out there. Maybe even getting behind the fence this year. We'll see what happens. But that's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow, we're talking linebackers. We're talking Eric Kendricks and the impact he can make for this defense. And if that's enough, right, and the big question marks around Kenneth Murray, Deion Henley, and much more. But until then, to make sure you don't miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, as well as following all of our social media because we post a show out every day. You can follow me on Twitter at DanTalkSports, Dave Drogmeyer on Twitter at DroTalkSD, and the show's page at Locked On LAC. You can also hit us up on the voicemail line at 323-524-7924. If you have a 30-second Chargers question, get it in and we'll get it in on the next Chargers mailbag show. But make sure you guys are back here tomorrow with the linebackers before getting into corners and maybe even a Justin Herbert contract extension, we can only hope, coming up later for you guys this week. But that's going to do it for us today. Thank you guys so much for making this your first listen. Until tomorrow, take it easy and go Bolts.